Alright guys, so we are going to be talking about adding and subtracting linear expressions. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get into this and what that means. Okay, so here we have an example, so you can just kind of see like where this is coming from. So we have some soda tabs that are being collected by a school, and so one grade has collected 13x plus 28, the other one 26x plus 47, and if we want to find out the total, then we add those together. So we're taking these two expressions and we're adding them together. So this on the screen, you're seeing the steps, so we're going to go through these steps here in just a minute. So just kind of giving you like where would we use this when we have two quantities that have two different terms in them that we need to add together. Okay, and then just remember with your variables, if variables start to mix, that you can't add two different variables together. So like apples and watermelons, I mean, you can't do that because that'd be like waffles, and that just doesn't exist. That's not a real thing, guys. Okay. So anyway, we are going to apply the properties. So you're going to see why you had to remember your properties, and then we'll get into the factoring later on. Okay, and just some reminders that an expression, part 1 is all about expressions, part 2 is going to be about those equations. The difference is equal sign and no equal sign, so don't be adding equal signs into stuff. Notice that all my work is going to be going vertically downward, and I don't go to the right and put equal signs. Okay, drop down every step, every time you do something. And then a term, so that was in combining like terms, just a reminder, those are your terms. Hold on. These are your terms, so the 5x squared is a term, 3x is a term, minus 6 is a term. It's each piece of your expression that is separated by the operating sign. And then your coefficients are the numbers with the variables, so your 5 and your 3 here are with those x's, so those are coefficients. And then x squareds cannot be added to x's because they're not the same thing. The x squared means that this is x times x, and this is just an x. You can't add those together, not like terms. It has to be the exact same variable raised to the exact same power. Okay? And so a's to a's, x's to x's, numbers to numbers, or I like to say constants to constants. Okay? So here, just something to help you out as we progress through this school year and math modeling and algebra and you know this section, this unit too. Notice the third term there, the third expression there, the d divided by 4. You can rewrite those so that your coefficient is 1/4, because remember, it's the same thing. If I take something divided by 4, it's the same as multiplying by 1/4. All right, so then it's more clear on what your coefficient is right there. So then let's look at what are like terms on this page. So everything with a b, everything with a d. Okay, so those are like terms. And then notice x squared is not the same as, or sorry, y is not the same as y. This is 3 times y times y. This is just 1y. Okay? All right, so let's get into our topic for today, which is adding and subtracting your expressions. So we have these two items that need, these two expressions that need to be added together. So I want you to pay attention to the fact that first I'm going to look at adding, okay? Because if there's subtraction, then that makes a big difference that when we're subtracting the second guy, okay? And the reason is there's an understood 1 here. And when so I'd have to distribute it. Now, with adding, it's not going to change my signs. So we're going to be able to just drop these parentheses and add like terms. But when this is subtraction right here, guys, you got to pay attention because you got to distribute a -1. So these guys have the right signs on them. Okay? So the first step is to ask yourself, is this adding or subtracting? It's adding, so I don't have to worry about the distributing. Okay? But I just need to watch for those when I'm subtracting. So watch for that minus sign. All right. So since we're adding, if we do distribute a positive 1 here, notice I'm going to walk you through this. This is why we just dropped the parentheses. Nothing about the signs change. Positive 1 times a positive 2.5 that would still be a positive 2.5 because positive times positive is positive. Positive times a negative is negative. So this still would be a minus sign. So when we're adding, we're just going to drop the parentheses. Okay? Then the next step is, because of properties that we know, we can shuffle things around so that like terms are next to each other. Now you guys will probably do this step in your head, okay, knowing you guys. So, but just know that properties is what allows you to move stuff around like this, okay? Because in combining terms, we're adding these all together, then that is the reason that you can move stuff around. Okay, so now we have like terms by each other, so then these x terms can get added together. So remember, there's a 1 right there, so 1x plus 2.5x is 3.5x, and 4 minus 7 is going to be a negative 3. So watch what happens here. I write minus 3. So 3.5x minus 3. This trips people up sometimes because you have to kind of be fluid and be flexible and say that the operating sign, sometimes it's interchangeable with its being its sign. Because things are moving around on you and we're using the commutative property to shuffle stuff around, then this operating sign travels with the number behind it. And so since it travels with that term, it's considered its sign. Okay, so this is an area where people get tripped up a little bit. Okay, all right, let's look at this guy. So we're adding these two expressions together. So if we distribute a positive 1, it doesn't make a difference. So we're not going to distribute. We're just going to use our little shortcut to we're just going to use our little shortcut here, that because now we understand why it's not going to change the sign on these guys to distribute a positive 1. So we're just going to go ahead and drop the parentheses because everything turns out the same anyway. All right, so now you can shuffle stuff around so that like terms are by each other, and this is something you probably would do in your head. And then now go ahead and combine those like terms. Now, if you're having trouble with this, you know, I suggest you do shuffle stuff around and don't try to jump to just, you know, doing everything in your head, okay? Also color pencils or whatever, circling some things and boxing some like terms in. I've showed you that, you know, that's a strategy you can use too, because these things, you know, some of your problems will get real long, okay? So here 5y plus 4, and we don't do anything else with that because those aren't like terms. Okay, so I'm gonna go through these. Now this is supposed to be an 8 right here, okay, but they fix it. I didn't make this, but they'd fix it, so they put it back to an 8. So I'm just gonna go through these so you can see these addition ones, and you can pause. This is a video, so you can pause and stop and look at any of this stuff if you want, and write it down in your notes if you would want. But I'm not going to go through each one because I want to get to subtraction and I don't want to make the video too long. All right. So this is the last adding one. So do we distribute? No, because that distributing a positive 1 wouldn't change anything back here. So we're just going to drop our parentheses because everything stays the same. Then we're going to move stuff around. So like terms are by each other. Okay, and notice that we have that negative 10 minus 8 more. Sorry, negative 2 minus 8 more, negative 10. All right, so now let's talk about the subtraction. All right, so now here we are with subtraction. Okay, now we have to think about this negative sign, because a negative, so there's like this negative 1 right here. Okay, so negative times a negative is a positive. That changes its sign. Negative times this positive, that changes its sign. So we have to distribute this negative sign so that way we get the right, we do the right operation with these like terms. Okay, so negative 1 times a negative 7 is going to make a positive 7. They'll show you that in a second. And then negative times a positive. Okay, so watch out for these. Now we're going to clean this up. Okay, so that minus a negative, you know that goes to positive. All right, so we're going to shuffle stuff around. Okay, so watch what happens here. And notice they cleaned up right here. Don't leave this. This is just for you to look at. I actually would just love for you to just go -1 times 8 and put a -8 right here. But because we're trying to show you what's going on here, we're showing you that a negative times a positive gives you a negative. Okay? But when you do this, I would really love for you to just go -1 times a -7, positive. -1 times a negative or +8, -8. Okay? I would love for you to just jump to that step. Then remember that there's a 1 here. So that's 8h. -4 minus 8 more gives you a -12, and there's our answer. And we can't combine those because those aren't like terms. All right, let's look at that again. All right, here's another -1, or another one with subtraction. So we're taking this expression and we're subtracting this one. So there's a -1 right here, okay? Because I'm subtracting j, and then I'm subtracting a -5. So that actually changes this to, we have to treat this like a -j, and we have to treat this like a +5. So that's why we distribute the -1. So a -1 times 1 is going to be times a +1 is a -j, and then negative times a negative here. Okay, so then you know that that's going to turn into a plus. So here we're shuffling stuff around, so like terms are by each other. Notice this went to a plus. Okay, so now we can go ahead and combine this stuff. So -2 minus 1 is a -3j. And then a -6 plus 5 is going to be a -1. So we're going to write a -1. Okay. And then you can do the same thing if decimals are there too. We're subtracting, so really pay attention whether this says adding or subtracting. You're going to distribute that. Okay, so we're going to distribute a -1. And then that just makes that negative, because the negative times a positive is negative. Then this negative times a positive, that's going to wind up having a minus sign there. Okay, so we'll shuffle stuff around so it's by one another. The k terms go together. And then notice what happened here. Minus and plus, that turns out to be a minus, all right? So then our 7 minus 4, okay? So I got some more of these. I'll just let these play, all right? So you're distributing a -1, multiply by -1. Okay, then we're going to flip-floppy stuff around. All right, minus a negative goes to plus. Then we're actually going to combine like terms, so the r terms get added together. The constants get combined together. And there's our answer. Okay. All right. Minus a negative, so that's going to wind up to be those big plus signs. Okay, and you can pause this at any time if you want to take it in. Okay, now notice there's a 2 out here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and distribute, because a 2 makes a difference. A +1 doesn't change anything, but since there's a 2 here, that changes things. Okay, and we're writing out every step for you here. Okay, so 2 times 3, so they're writing out all the steps, and 2 times a -4. Okay, so then that all gets, so they clean this back end up here. So this is 6x, so this is where it came from. And then 2 times a -4, -8. Okay, and then we're going to move stuff around so that it's closer, and then combine like terms. Okay? All right. So, this is going to be one of your exit slip questions. So you can, it'll be down below. You can work it out and type it in. So I have 2 of them. This will be one of them. All right. And hopefully you guys are all good. And I will talk to you later. Okay? Oops.